On NPR, I'm a liberal, so I have to pipe my head through full of NPR. Last
Okay.
week, they had a story from an author whose dad was a lawyer, so she grew up, and she gets around, a lawyer dad, and
Okay.
she goes on the Martha Stewart show to promote her book,
Okay.
and Martha Stewart starts asking her questions, and Martha Stewart says, "So you grew up in Wyoming?" And the author says, "Yes." and they had to stop tape and persuade the author
Oh, wow.
to give more than the precise minimum that would answer the question.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And I, by the way, I've been listening to a lot of NPR because I need to hear what liberals are thinking. And they're, today on NPR, they, for about 5 years before the gay marriage was adopted, every single time I turned on NPR, there was some sort of report or story about homosexuality. Every single time. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, and I actually began to keep track, and it was every single story for about 5 years. Whenever they had a chance to do a creative story, they said, well, these two men that happen to be living together. And today, now, as you know, the liberals have succeeded. They've progressed, and we have gay marriage because of John Roberts, the liberal that was appointed by Bush.
Not really a liberal. He's part of the conservative arm.
He's a conservative that's in favor of gay marriage.
Which
So-
is
which is
most of the country finds.
absolutely a conservative thing. I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic. It is not conservative to be for gay marriage. But the point is that today, because the liberals have accomplished that, because I was wondering, all right, well, what's the next thing that the liberals are going to try and do to disrupt the family? Because that's their goal. We're all supposed to be married to the state.
That's your deep commitment to your side.
Yeah, and so they want to disrupt the family. And so for a long time, all you heard about on NPR was transgenderism, like men that thought that decided at a certain point that they were women, or women that decided they were men. And every single week, that's what you'd hear. And if you don't believe me,
Let me ask you something.
Wait. Just let me just finish the thought. And if you don't believe me, listen every week. They will have something about an alternative sexual lifestyle. There will never be a week that goes by, a single Saturday or Sunday, where there isn't just like stuff about things other than a sexual lifestyle that's unusual. There'll be something. So today, I couldn't wait to tell you this. They had a show about the sexual behavior between animals and humans.
I know that they've run that story. That story is about 8 years old, and they
Okay.
run it every once in a while because it's popular.
And
It's what's the name of the chimp who
Lucy's the chimp, yeah.
who was raised as a human.
Right. But I thought to myself, oh, this is perfect. It's like, of course NPR would want to have something about
I heard the
sex
same
between
story,
men
but
and
when
women,
I heard it-
between animals and humans.
No,
of course.
but it's because people find it fascinating that this happened.
Yeah, and they also find it fascinating
But
that
hold on, because they used to run the story about the squirrel that gets loose in the house.
that was the best. That was the funniest story I've ever heard.
People, yeah, and so
It's hysterical.
It ran all the time.
And it gets cut. It goes into the fireplace, and it gets that, and it catches fire at the end. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, so
I mean, it's a great.
Every time they try to during a fun drive, they used
Yeah.
to run the squirrel story.
Yes.
They've run that Lucy story a gazillion times
Yeah.
because it's so crazy that a scientist wanting to see if primates could learn human language brought Lucy the chimp home and raised her as his daughter.
Right.
And she gets older. And you left out the part where Lucy would mix her own gin and tonics.
Yeah.
And Lucy would make tea. for guests.
Right, but I thought
All right,
this
so
is so perfect.
So what happens, this is like in
course.
1970s. Lucy,
Okay.
the scientist notices that Lucy, who's by now an adult chimpanzee, but living in a human household, is masturbating. So being a scientist, he rushes out to the drugstore and he buys a copy of Playgirl magazine.
Well, there you go.
Brings it home to see if Lucy is sexually stimulated by human males.
Perfectly understandable.
Well, no, it's crazy.
For a liberal, that's like the next frontier.
But that's one crazy scientist who brought up, and then the rest of the story, because the story goes on for another half hour about somebody who takes Lucy and tries to return Lucy to the wild. And Lucy hates it because Lucy considers herself a human.
Right. And I'm just wondering why NPR thought it was very important for us to hear about bestiality.
Well, because that's one little 1 minute segment, maybe the most sensational 1 minute segment out of a story that takes an hour.
Right.
And you
Why
can't,
don't they just keep it to themselves? Why do we have to hear about that part?
because they explain about, like, they talk about speciation. How one way that under evolution that species are species is that when a species divides,
Right.
eventually the new species that arise, perhaps from a split in the species, one part of the population becomes isolated and evolves in a different way, is it seems that among most closely related species that were part of the same species at some point in the recent past, in evolutionary terms, they're not sexually intriguing to each other. We don't get boners for any primates other than humans.
Yeah.
We might if Neanderthals were still around, but we wiped them out. Though actually, we got with our DNA is a certain fraction Neanderthal, so there was some hooking up. But so this guy was actually showing, the scientist who buys Playgirl, is that it's possible for one primate to be conditioned to find primates from a different species attractive. In fact, this isn't really probably germane, but furries are humans who are sexually attracted to other humans who dress in furry costumes.
Yeah, and they're probably voting for Obama and Clinton as well. That's if the true study was done. I'm just saying, you guys love a little.
Yeah, but that was 1 minute out of a, and you can't leave that part of the story out.
Well, it's just, I mean, there are things about sex that liberals love to talk about that really don't seem to matter.
I'll tell you
very
what's
much.
interesting is that, a big chunk of the country is deeply conservative.
Yes.
Enough to get Trump elected.
Okay.
Yet, that same God-fearing part of the country will watch with avid interest the perverse products of our entertainment industry and be entertained by them. I mean, more people watch HBO than watch the Hallmark Channel. But if you're a good, God-fearing American citizen with strict biblical values, you should be watching the Hallmark Channel and nothing else, with its wholesome entertainment, pleasant, wholesome entertainment. And you shouldn't be watching, the boobs and violence and dragons on HBO.
That's the thing. It's very seductive. One of the promises that liberalism makes is that you'll be able to fuck anyone anytime. I mean, it doesn't succeed. Liberalism doesn't succeed by telling you that your life's going to be miserable. Liberals succeed by telling you you'll be able to take any drug you want, you'll be able to fuck anybody you want. Life's just going to be one hedonistic party. So sure, of course, and of course, conservatives can be seduced by liberals this way. It's very seductive.
Well, I would.
Wait,
let me disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
We grew up, as we keep saying, in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And you remember how terrible TV was.
Okay.
Did you ever find yourself watching the Brady Bunch?
Actually, not the Brady Bunch. Sorry.
But it was the TV of that era was very scrubbed of
You know
any-
what? You know what? I can tell you this much. TV today is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's true. There's a definite difference.
So, and I'd say one reason is, well, it's less lazy, but it also encompasses more of the human experience. Now, it also encompasses a lot of weird ass shit, but you can present a more fully rounded picture of human experience without, trying to seduce people to the dark side. We all have, you find that, the 1 minute of the story about Lucy liking Playgirl magazine as a way as part of an agenda to destroy the American family.
I agree with that. Thank you.
But
You've clarified my position. Thank you.
But it's really just one of the weirder parts of a story that is overall weird.